Hey guys, Kathleen Ferguson here with Coach 360. I'm so excited that you're about to see one of my good friends, Travis Barnes, share his story on how he overcame all obstacles with his wife, Cindy Barnes, and started their incredible franchise brand, Journey 333. Now, a couple weeks ago, we announced that Journey 333 will be partnering with Todd Durkin to transfer over to a new brand that they created together called Impact X Performance. Most importantly, though, Travis shares his story of overcoming adversity, and you're not going to want to miss this one. It's incredible. His why really speaks into the hearts and souls of so many of us because this particular industry is fueled on inspiration and passion for what we do. So without further ado, enjoy this video series and let me know your feedback. And also, who would you like to see next? Hi, Travis. Thank you so much for being here today with myself and Coach 360. Obviously, so excited to talk to you. I've worked with you on multiple different projects, and I just want our audience to have a chance to get to know you because you have such a unique story. And I would love to hear from you a little bit more about your journey and kind of how you got to where you are today.
Well, I think like many fitnesspreneurs and fit pros, I got there with a passion for fitness. Young age, I was growing up in a broken home and I discovered that being fit on the outside made me feel better on the inside. So I was always attracted to fitness. I would say it was my form of therapy. And then that passion became a purpose for sure.
That's amazing. Would you say that as you went through this journey, did you have anyone in your life that really served as a specific mentor to you in your life and also within your career?
Yeah. The mentors came a bit later on. Early on, it was more of the inspirations, right? I got into fitness around the time that bodybuilding was big. I was reading the encyclopedia of Arnold Schwarzenegger, stuff like those kind of things. And so there's a lot of inspirations. I think by the end of the show that we have today, I'll be able to tie one early inspiration into something that became a purpose later on. I remember going up to Lee Haney at the place where I got my first job. I got my first job in fitness at the Gold's Gym in Las Vegas, Nevada. And Lee Haney was training Evander Holyfield to move up from cruiserweight to heavyweight. And I'm like, at the time, I was so interested in bodybuilding, even though Evander Holyfield's a great draw and somebody that you might want to go get the autograph from. I was looking for an autograph from Lee Haney. And he signed his autograph, Lee Haney, Matthew 5:14-16. And so I walked away from there going, who was Matthew? I was like, is that how many sets and reps they were doing? 5 and 14-16. I looked that up and it turned out that it was all about, letting your light shine. It was a good encouragement early on. However, later on, as I became a business owner, somebody that I'm sure we'll talk a bit about throughout this show, my greatest impact has definitely been Todd Durkin.
TD.
Great mentor.
That's amazing. So, as we journey through life and our career, we all encounter challenges. I've shared some of mine with you as well. What would you say has been your greatest challenge, and what did you do to overcome it and get to where you are today?
Yeah. Early on at that Gold's Gym in Las Vegas, Nevada, I was a naive kid. I remember going up to some of those pro bodybuilders and saying, "What do I need? Do I need to take Metrex? What's going to get me so I could be like you?" And I was just very naive and foolish to be thinking the way I was. And what I actually found out was that even though bodybuilders look healthy on the outside, there's many that are very unhealthy on the inside. My first job in fitness was in a gym where people may even use cocaine as a diuretic. There, I knew a bodybuilder that smoked pot before he trained because he believed that that lowered his cortisol levels and allowed him to push harder. Well, needless to say, being a young impressionable kid, I was willing to compromise myself early on. And so the challenge that I faced early on was an introduction to drugs that led me on a downward spiral. And here was this kid that thought that he was going to maybe get into the professional bodybuilding world or work around professional bodybuilders, but uh, quickly lost his job as a fit pro, wound up being a bartender in Las Vegas, and was on a downward spiral with drugs. Eventually, that led me to a decade incarceration for a nonviolent drug offense.
And so, as you journeyed through that challenge, What would you say brought you out of that? Obviously, you had, your time that you were incarcerated, but during that time, something within you transformed and you changed and you came out of that situation, that incredibly difficult challenge, and became the man that you are today, which is, you're the successful business owner doing incredible things. And, just from what I know of you, you're impacting lives in this really positive way. And, what got you to that? Because, that's a huge transformation. That's a huge change from what you just talked about and that challenge that you went through.
Yeah. Well, from the time that I started that job in the Gold's Gym to my downward spiral, there were moments of clarity. And those moments of clarity, I met a wonderful woman who I'm still married to today. And so we got married along the way. I still had issues with drugs. Obviously, it led me to a decade of incarceration. And originally, by the way, it wasn't supposed to be a decade. A decade was what I got as a result of my appeal. I was originally sentenced to 188 months and supposed to do 85% of that. So that's 15 years, 8 months that I was sentenced to.
Mhm.
And so when I had this young woman in my life as a wife, and I was sentenced to 188 months, she wasn't coming to prison very long to visit me before I said, you know what, I gotta set her free. I gotta let her know that this is no place for her to be. And
Mm,
by that
yeah.
time, what I did not know at the time that I committed the crime that put me in there was that we were going to have a daughter. So that all happened throughout that process of becoming sentenced and becoming incarcerated. And so I told her, I remember the visit. She came for a visit, and I said, Cindy, this is no place for you to be. I'm going to be here for a long time, and you need to forget about me. There's no place for our daughter to come. And she looked at me so confused. She looked at me so confused, and she's like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, "I'm not going anywhere." And she says, "Our daughter needs to know that she has a father." I was like, I was so confused by what she was saying because I thought, I had this plan so perfectly. Like I was going to be the hero of the story. I was going to set her free, and you could just forget about me. Well,
Okay.
when she told me that, it created a type of accountability for me that really changed my life. I said, "How can I be a father from in here?" And that was a great question to ask myself because I began to write letters home every day. At Easter time, I drew a map that they could use to hide Easter eggs and would half color pictures through the mail. At Christmas time, we'd color a Christmas tree and kind of decorate it with stickers together so we could decorate a tree. I'd draw the face at Halloween for the pumpkin that they'd carve. And I did the very best I could to be a father from in there. And so I would say that really what changed me throughout that time and made me who I am today is a woman that loved me enough to stay by my side for a decade, and that I had to make sure that I did right by her and my daughter and came home a better person.
Well, that's an incredible story. And thank you for sharing that with us. So let's switch gears a little bit and tell me a little bit more about what you're doing today. Because I know you're making positive impact. That's what you do. So tell me a little bit more about what that looks like.
Yeah, so coming home, I was able to get a job and work my way up and, working my way up from trainer to manager to chief operations officer, eventually starting my own fitness business, which was Journey Fitness, which we began in 2013. We quickly grew to 5 locations in less than 4 years. We became a franchise just prior to the pandemic, like become a
That's
franchise in
good.
2019. We're like, let's go. And 2020 they like try to shut down all the fitness. So uh, we all know that the pandemic that was supposed to be 2 weeks was a bit longer than 2 weeks. In fact, there were some aspects of that seemed to drag on for years. So that being said, I feel like our franchise is really just getting started. And when we can't even understand why things are happening and we're so frustrated by them, we can sometimes look back and see that there was a timing. And I feel like what's happened with our franchise is that it was put on hold for a time such as this, for a greater plan and purpose. Here we were with a half a dozen locations and ready to launch as a franchise. And really feeling the need to hold because we didn't want to sell a franchise when so many different places were being shut down. And so what we originally had is a group training model, which is very common nowadays. You see a lot of that. There's a lot of big brands that are group training, is now becoming a more holistic approach with someone that we've partnered with that I believe is going to allow us to step into the future. I had mentioned earlier on the show that there is somebody that I can credit as being a mentor in fitness and not just an inspiration, and that's Todd Durkin. If you had asked me, let's see, when I first came home, that's an interesting story in itself. When I first came home and I got to my first fitness conference, I was so inspired by this guy. But if you had told me back in roughly 2011 when I first met him that one day we'd be partnering together, I definitely would not have believed that. But here we are, partnering together, going through a rebrand, and really bringing to the fitness industry what I believe is next. And I think that what's happening in fitness is that we see a lot of we see people with multiple memberships, right? I have a membership over here, and I have a membership over here, and a membership over here, and for that reason, you don't have a lot of customer loyalty. Also, I think as fitness professionals, we've been caught up in something that we should not have been caught up in, and that's the big debate. What's better? Is it virtual? Is it in person? Is it group? Is it private? We're kind of asking ourselves the wrong questions, aren't we? Because we're trying to be too much of a specialist. And because we try to specialize too much and because we try to debate too much, we got fitness professionals that also need to be waiters or waitresses. And we got members with multiple gym memberships. What Todd and I will be bringing as we rebrand what was once Journey Fitness into Impact X Performance is a much more holistic approach to fitness, to where a member doesn't need to have multiple gym memberships, and the fitness professional will have enough opportunity for work within a single business unit that they won't have to have an additional job to support themselves as a fitness professional. I feel like that's a really exciting thing that we're doing right now.
That's amazing. And I mean, it's just so relevant and in line with where the industry and what today's customer needs today. I mean, just as a busy mom of three myself, it's so hard to find the time to first off just get to the gym in the first place to take care of my fitness, but then to also try and figure out, okay, well, where am I going to go and when am I going to go? When could I possibly have time to go find a place to also have my recovery? It's just something that I think we as, busy people these days, it's just to be able to have all of that housed under one roof and to have the qualified professionals to kind of guide you through all of these different modalities that all of them are needed. I think a lot of times, we tend to ignore one or more of, the things that need to be addressed. If our fitness is in line, we're ignoring our nutrition. Or if we got those two things dialed in, we're ignoring recovery. So I think to be able to have all those under one roof is genius. And, I think you guys are going to do really big things and you're going to make a really positive impact on a lot of lives.
Yeah.
Excited to hear more and to see this develop. So if someone is interested in, potentially even maybe, owning one of these franchises, what would you recommend that they do? How could they go about getting more information?
Yeah, they could just go to impactxfranchise.com, and on ImpactX Franchise, they could just fill out an expression of interest. We'd send them a franchise info packet where they could learn more. However, I love the things that you're highlighting. Just to talk a little bit more about that, that's something that I love about Todd's vision. That's a shared vision, and that is having that seamless blend of recovery and fitness. That's another problem, right? In fitness, right? You feel like, oh, I got to go over here for my recovery, but I go here for my fitness, and all those kind of things. We're going to have that seamless blend, and it's going to be such a world-class recovery situation to where you would come in for the recovery alone. And we're not having the debate over which is better, one-on-one or group. We're not going to be a franchise that's only offering the private or a franchise that's only offering the group. We're offering excellence in both. And because we know that life is what happens when you're making other plans, there's even mindset coaching, which we like to call success coaching, because it's not about having a life coach. It's about optimizing your performance in all areas of life, which even include that spiritual area, right? Our 4 pillars are fitness, recovery, mindset, and faith. Now, faith is something different to each person, But if you've ever said, I'm driving myself crazy or I can't stand myself, you've admitted that you have two selves to deal with, right? And so we want to help people deal with that.
Right.
So I mean, there it is, right? There's the hey, who said I needed that? Well, you probably did at one point or another when you said you were driving yourself crazy. So yeah, it'll be fitness, recovery, mindset, and faith. Yeah,
Mindset.
those would be the four pillars. But yeah,
Amazing.
when we deal with that, Todd calls it the 10 forms of wealth. But when we deal with those 10 forms of wealth, we're helping people optimize their performance in all areas of.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on something that's really interesting, Travis, and I think that it's really hard to have success in one area as a customer or client or end user consumer, call it. To have success in fitness or nutrition without fixing and paying attention to the mindset. Because, when you look at, most of the things that, cause obesity and disordered eating and just disordered behaviors in general, it all starts, with the mind. Todd says this all the time. He always says, get your mind right.
Yeah.
So I think that focusing on mindset and the spirituality element, I think is going to really set you guys apart. I think it's just a major differentiator. I've never seen anything like it, and I think it really speaks to what's relevant in today's climate in terms of health, fitness, and wellness.
Yeah.
And on that note too, I would love to hear from you. I mean, you just touched on a few trends. What are some other trends that you're seeing as the future of health, fitness, and wellness?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I see coming in, and this is something that we intend to master, we really want to be number one when it comes to the customization of your programming. There's all this information. The future, if Orange is the New Black, I don't know if you ever heard of that TV show, but if Orange is the New Black,
So
longevity is the new fat, right? Orange is the new black, longevity is the new fat, right? Well,
I love.
what does that mean? You got wearables that even include jewelry that'll tell you a lot about yourself. You got hearables that'll even analyze your brain waves. You got ingestibles, a pill that you can take that will analyze you from the inside out. You got clothing that will analyze your performance. Here's the problem though. We got so much analysis and very few fit pros ready to tell the client or the member what they do with all that information. So what's going
Right.
to happen in the future is there will become a partnership between the coach and artificial intelligence will come in and play a role because we're not just going to take all this information and do it longhand in a notebook, right? We're going to take this
Right.
information and we're going to process it with the help of AI, which will even include your DNA and what type of environment, what type of epigenetics we need to set up for you in your programming to make sure that even according to your DNA that your programming is good. So the future of fitness is really planning for a good lifespan, a good health span, using all the information that's available, not having it be an isolated piece that the member or client doesn't know what to do with. Yeah, I bought this new clothing and it tells me how I perform, but my coach doesn't want to talk much about it, or include it in my program design. No, we have to. We can't ignore it. We can't just keep coming at them with a scale and a body fat meter. I mean, we got to come at them with a plan that includes all that.
Yeah, because it's not, to your point, it's not just the data. It's what do you do with it?
Right.
The data means nothing unless you have actionable plans to implement with your clients. So, I think, from my perspective, just as kind of I've been in the industry for 15 years and I still don't feel like I would be knowledgeable enough because I'm not a coach anymore to understand, what to do with all of the wearable data, what to do with the genome sequencing data. I would really depend on, a fitness professional, a health professional, a coach to, kind of tell me what do I do with that? What kind of plan do I use to optimize my health? So that's really interesting. And I think, you're spot on with, where we're going as an industry and future of fitness. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, that's a piece
Um,
that needs to be solved, right? So much information, but
yeah,
people helping you process it, right? Super important.
absolutely. So last question. You have been a coach. You've worn many different hats. You are where you are today. You're a business owner. You're a dad. You're a great person. How, what kind of information and advice would you give to other coaches that are coming into the industry and they just became certified? They don't really know what to do with that certification. What kind of advice would you give them to guide them in their career and to figure out what is it that they want to do with this certification, this education? How do they make a long-term career out of it and not just have it be something that they train people for a couple of years and then they go on to something else? Because most people enter this because they're passionate about helping people. So how do we keep those people in the industry to help people?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'll tell you, if they're listening to your show today, they're on the right track because they need well, they need to find their people, right? I mean, thank God if you were thinking that you're a lone ranger, you're not. And don't try to be one because if you want to go fast, go by yourself and you'll go fast to a place that you don't want to be. But if you want to go far, go together. So that means, things like Coach 360, it means mentorships, masterminds. It's just very important to surround yourself. I think was it Ken Blanchard, maybe? But you're the average of 5 people you spend the most time with. You got to surround yourself with other successful fitness professionals. So then that way you can become that average, right? So like that's the best advice I got. Here I am. Why am I partnering with Todd Durkin all these years later? Because I chose to invest in his mastermind and his mentorships and actually apply this stuff, so that's very important.
Well, that's wonderful advice. And I really appreciate you being here today to share all of your insights, the trends, and yeah, just kind of your coaching to our coaches. Really appreciate you being here. And thank you so much, Travis. Excited to hear more about Impact X.